Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Rob Scheer on the line, and he's founder of Comfort Cases, and he's host of the podcast Fostering Changes. Rob, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome. Thank you, Adam, so much. Yeah, it's hard to believe, but being a podcast host of Fostering Change, but yeah, that's pretty exciting.
All right, Rob. So I've been excited to have you on this show for quite some time now. So it's just first off an honor to have your content on our website distributed to our audience over at missionmatters.com. And I want to go into where we'll go into the podcast content. We'll go into your book. Of course, we'll talk about Comfort Cases and just the amazing story behind that nonprofit. But before we do that, we'll start this episode the way we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Rob, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Rob, what mission matters to you?
Wow, what a great question. My mission that matters is to be a good human.
Hmm. All right. So, let's go further into this. So, comfort cases. I want to kind of start at the beginning with this before we get into before we get into the podcast, before we get into your book. So, what inspired this journey, and what led to Comfort Cases?
Wow, I've for 10 years I keep getting that question asked, and I talk a lot about the fact that I think each and every one of us have a story.
Yeah.
And it is so important that each and every one of us tell our story. And that's exactly what I decided to do. My life didn't start out like everybody else. And when it comes to Comfort Cases, I wanted to impact our community. I wanted our community to really know that if we come together, we can all bring about change. And what I wanted to make sure of is that we brought hope and dignity to our youth that are in foster care. And that was so important. Most of us will go our entire life and not ever say the word foster care, or much less even think about the kids who are in foster care. And for me, I wanted that different. So for Comfort Cases, it was to give hope and dignity to our youth in foster care by eliminating these trash bags, something that children all over our country, and by the way, all over the world, are carrying their belongings in when they enter foster care.
So I know, just for context and background, a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, senior level executives watch this show and follow our platform. And one of the things that I find so unique about your journey is that, number one, you were working on and making this difference, and putting your time, putting your effort and your resources behind Comfort Cases, even when you were an executive. So you started, early on in your career. Tell us a little bit more just about your background, because one of my goals here is to help inspire some other people that maybe have some thoughts about how they can give back, whether it's, through supporting Comfort Cases or their own initiatives. But give us a little bit more about your background.
Sure. I will tell you, I'm a dot-com guy. I grew up, in the system. I, aged out of the system. I was one of those 30,000 who aged out. I was one of the 70% that actually became homeless, living on the streets my entire senior year of high school. I realized that I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be like my other brothers and sisters and so many other people I hear about in the system. And I decided to join the United States Navy. And I joined the Navy. I became a very successful businessman, and I never looked back. My background is in finance, and the only thing I was concerned with was having a big house, so you all would stop by it and look at it and say, wow, look at that house. I wonder whoever lives in there. I bet they're really successful. Number two, I wanted to buy a very expensive car because I wanted to pull up to the stoplight. I wanted you to look at me, and I wanted you to say, whoever's driving that car, they're successful. And then I filled my bank account so fat I could take all of your listeners to Disney World, because that's what I thought was as important as a corporate guy.
Hmm.
Little did I know that that wasn't the case. Little did I know that almost 13 years ago, when
Hmm.
4 of my 5 children arrived in my home carrying a trash bag, did I
Wow.
realize what corporate responsibility is truly about. And for me, it was starting our organization, Comfort Cases. And I have to tell you something. People ask me all the time, how did we become so successful as an organization, as a nonprofit? How did we become such, international in such a short period of time? And I will explain how
Yeah.
I've done it is because I run our organization like I run a business.
Mm.
As you know, being in business as CEOs, we all know that every dollar counts. Well, guess
Hmm.
what? When you're running a nonprofit, it counts twice as much. So
Hmm.
for me, I think that bringing my background of finance
Hmm.
and being an executive to where I sit today,
Yeah.
I think that's really the success so much. But again, I also say this quite often. I do truly believe that
Yeah.
your community, and Adam, let's make sure that all of your listeners and viewers understand something. Community is not your zip code. That is not
Mm.
community.
Yeah.
Community is our human race. And so, what affects people in my little town of Darnestown, Maryland, where I sit at today, or it also affects people in Austin, Texas, and it
Hmm.
affects people in Phoenix, Arizona. And I truly believe that if you educate your community, if you teach your
Yeah.
community that here is the problem and then teach them how to solve it, they'll
Hmm.
do it. They'll do it. And I've seen it happen.
So one of the things that happens, and and I don't care what level in your career you're at, whether you're senior level, you're just getting started out of college. There's always this thought of I'll help out or I'll do something later, and there's always that kind of tomorrow feeling, or maybe when I retire, or just a lot of different things. I'm not going to go through the laundry list of excuses. And by the way, I've made the excuses too, so I'll pick on myself, right? But what's one of those things you tell the people that are watching this that have something like mission based, or something, a higher calling, or something else they want to do to give back, and they just kind of quite haven't made that first step? We know everybody's not going to go full time and build a international organization and do some of the other things you did, but there's just so much that collectively we can all do together, even everybody just helping a little. So what would you tell people that are kind of on the fences still on going after whatever their passion is regarding giving back?
Well, first of all, I have to tell you something right now. The very first step that they're doing, they're already doing because they're
Mhm.
thinking about it.
Mhm.
Okay. We have to realize, how does our world go around? Well, our world goes around because people are sitting there, the doers, and they're pushing it. The doers. And we're
Mhm.
all doers, by the way. It's
Yeah.
just, what do we do? For me, I took my pain and I turned it
Mhm.
into my passion, which then turned it into my purpose. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to first realize is, number one, what do we have a passion for? What do we
Mhm.
have a passion for? I have a daughter who's 17, and we actually have 5 kids. And my daughter, she's 17 years old. Her passion is horses,
Mm.
and so anything that she can do with horses, that's what she's going to do. And I love that. Even though her family has a nonprofit when it comes to foster care, her passion is horses. And so
Yeah.
what I try to explain to people is, one, find out what your passion is. The
Mhm.
second thing is, stop making the excuses. I am
Yeah.
so tired of the excuses that I hear. I hear this all the time, every day.
Mhm.
Every day people say to me, I really would give more to your foundation if,
Mhm.
I had money. And I remind them all the time, whether you are white or black, whether
Mhm.
you are rich or poor, whether you are gay or straight or male
Mhm.
or female, each and every one of us have the most valuable thing that keeps us
Mhm.
all on the same playing field. That's time.
Mhm.
Time. Every one of us has time. Whether it's an hour for you to go down to a group home and help
Mhm.
read to kids who are in foster care, or play some
Mhm.
basketball with some kids who are in the system, or maybe it's, going to the food pantry and
Mhm.
helping them. Every single person has time. And for
Mm.
those of you who say you don't have time, call me up. I'll explain to you where that time is. Because let me tell you, as a dad of 5 teenagers and
Yeah.
somebody who is not only do I run an international nonprofit, I'm a public speaker.
Mhm.
I'm on my third book.
Wow.
And again, I, was an executive, and I used to make that excuse. I literally used to sit behind my desk, and I'd be like, oh, I know I got to get all my employees involved and get them to give back,
Yeah.
get them to go to a food pantry or a soup kitchen. And then
Yeah.
I would sit there and say to my assistant, I have no time in my calendar whatsoever to help anybody. Gosh, how selfish was I?
Yeah.
Because the fact is, you all can make time.
Mhm. Great. It's great insight, Rob, and I get it. And like I said, I'll pick on myself here. And one of the reasons I wanted is I've made that excuse myself, and that's a thing that I think we're constantly always reflecting on. I am personally, and also as an organization, like how we can get involved and how we can do more things to continue to give back and to make that time. I want to shift gears a
But
bit
Adam,
here.
hold on. I want to
But
before you step away from that, I want to tell you something. This is something I have learned
yeah.
that people in our community
Hmm.
they want to deal with, work with, and support companies that
Hmm.
they know are supporting their community. It's
Yeah.
simple as that. For so long I used to always think, yeah, oh yeah, right, whatever. As a somebody in the corporate world, I'd write that
Yeah.
into the year check and never think twice about it.
Hmm.
But what I've learned now, 10 years into our nonprofit, is
Hmm.
when I see organizations like Bombas Socks, who's one of our supporters, World Market,
Hmm.
Soapbox, Briggs and Riley, these huge companies who write checks to our
Hmm.
organization. But guess what? I remind people all the time, I don't need their money. I
Yeah.
don't need their money. What I love about those corporate sponsors is they stand next to me and they
Yeah.
come in, they help pack cases, they help us ship the cases out. And that's something I want, as you touch
Hmm.
base about your own corporation, how
Yeah.
they give back. Understand something. Employees want to work
Hmm.
for companies that give back to their community.
Hmm.
And that's what we all as corporate people must realize.
So I want to shift gears here a bit. So I want to go a little bit more into, I don't want to assume that everybody watching this maybe understands the foster care system, some of the opportunities there, and some of the challenges. So maybe tell us a little bit more about the system overall, and why you chose to focus on it.
Yeah. Wow. That's a tough question, my friend.
Yeah.
The fact is that our foster care system here in the United States and throughout our world is absolutely shattered. And
Mm.
I am a firm believer that when things are shattered, you cannot take super glue and put them back together. They must be rebuilt, and the
Yeah.
system has to be rebuilt. See, for
Mhm.
me, my life started out as a 12-year-old boy
Mm.
carrying a trash bag up a
Yeah.
driveway. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget walking into that home. I'll
Mm.
never forget the fact that they expected me to take a shower and use the same bar of soap as everybody else. And by the
Mm.
way, what was their middle names? I'll never
Yeah.
forget it. And then I will not forget the fall of 1984 when I had
Mhm.
turned 18 years old and I was a senior in high school and I
Mhm.
literally aged out. I aged
Mm.
out and I came home, and instead of somebody asking me how was my day, I was
Mhm.
handed a trash bag and I became
Wow.
homeless. So we have to understand something.
Mm.
Kids in foster care are in foster care because of choices other people made.
Mhm.
Other people made. So what we've done is we've stuck roughly about 438,000 kids in a
Mhm.
shattered system. We've given them no hope, no
Mhm.
future. We hand them a trash bag.
Yeah.
We say that they'll be taken care of when we know that they will not. And
Mhm.
let's look at the statistics. The fact is that only 54% of kids in foster care
Mhm.
actually graduate from high school.
Wow.
I know as a father of 5 kids, if that happened in our school district, I'd have the
Mhm.
superintendent's head on a platter, but it
Yeah.
happens in foster care every single day. We
Mm.
also know that only 11% of kids in foster care will actually fill out a college application. Only
Mm.
11% of
Wow.
438,000. And then to know that only 3% get a 4-year degree.
Mm.
Every day I think about it. I think about the number 700 because
Mm.
here in the United States, we average 1,500 children entering the foster care system. That's one kid every 2 minutes. They
Wow.
enter the system because of what we call neglect,
Mm.
abuse. I get it. And by the way, I'm a father who has 5 kids from this system. My
Yeah.
oldest son is 20, my youngest son is 13, and
Mm.
all 5 of them, I get it, but
Yeah.
I also understand that not every child needs to come into foster care. And why?
Mhm.
Because of that word neglect. It's a gray word. And by the way, I know for a fact that that
Mhm.
word is based on the color of your skin.
Mm.
It's based on the color of your skin. And so for
Mhm.
foster care, we've got to do better, my friend. We have
Mm.
to, because today, if you do a poll from
Mhm.
East Coast to West Coast, 80% of prisoners who are standing behind a bar right now has
Yeah.
either been in foster care or touched by foster care. The
Wow.
only thing that we have done as a community is graduate children from
Mhm.
foster care to the penitentiary. Well, why
Mm.
is that? Well, because we have given them no future. We've given them no hope. We've given them no support. I
Mm.
could not imagine my son, my oldest son, he's
Yeah.
20 years old. He's going to be 21 on Monday.
Mm.
I can't believe I got a 21-year-old, but my son's 21 on Monday. My son arrived at the age of 18 into our
Mm.
family. I look at him now and I just can't think the
Yeah.
fact that when he's 25, that he wouldn't have his dads to rely on. Could you
Mm.
imagine being 18 years old, Adam, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're given literally most of the states, and by the way, no state does it the same way.
Yeah.
Most of the states will hand you a check for $500 and a list of shelters. That's it.
Wow.
That's it. Could you
Yeah.
imagine? I mean, I could not. I lived it. I
Yeah.
lived it. I can't imagine a child of today's society.
Mhm.
Well, first of all, $500 is nothing um,
Yeah.
in today's economy, as
For
we
sure.
all know that. Um, but then to be able to have to navigate through the system, mind you, we give foster parents a monthly stipend,
Mm.
some more than they ever should receive, but we
Mhm.
support our children. And by the way, I say our children because these
Mhm.
kids are your kids. They're my kids. They're our kids. And if
Yeah.
we do not invest in them today, seriously, if we
Yeah.
do not invest in them today, you will invest in them tomorrow because the only
Yeah.
thing you're going to do is build another prison, you
Yeah.
know. And then let's talk about trafficking.
Mm.
Children who are trafficked. Do you
Mm.
realize that 78% of human trafficking children are kids from foster care? Kids from
Wow.
foster care. And today, 4,600. 4,600. What does
Yeah.
that number mean to you? Let me tell you what it means to me. I know for a fact that there's 4,600 kids in the United States that are registered for foster care
Mm.
and no one knows where they are.
Wow.
No clue. You don't
Wow.
see it on CNN. Fox News isn't reporting it. NBC doesn't report it.
Yeah.
You know why? You know why they don't support them?
Yeah.
Because they don't matter. They don't
Mm.
matter. They are the disposable children, the invisible children. But I'm
Mm.
here to tell you that is not true. They are
Yeah.
not disposable. They're not invisible. And if we
Mhm.
do not invest in them, and
Yeah.
people ask me all the time, Rob, how do I invest in a child that
Yeah.
is in a shattered system? A
Mhm.
child that normally, people don't even realize kids in foster care suffer from post traumatic stress
Mhm.
disorder twice the rate as our combat veterans coming back from the front line.
Mm.
Twice the rate.
Wow.
Let me tell you how we invest in them. Number one, if you're able to give a stipend to a
Mm.
foster parent, can someone explain to me why you cannot take some of that stipend, put it
Yeah.
in an interest bearing savings account for when they age out? And I am not saying write them a check when they
Yeah.
turn 18. By the way, I have teenagers. I understand about not being able to write them a check at large
Yeah.
check, but give them a net. Give
Mhm.
them a net for apartment, down payment. Give
Yeah.
them a net. Number two, open up your education pathways. And
Mm.
I do not mean just pay their tuition.
Yeah.
I write about it in my book about the young boy who my husband and I gave a scholarship to.
Mm.
The young boy at Christmas time who called us to inform us that his school was paid for, but guess what? The
Mm.
school closed during the Christmas holiday.
Oh,
And where was he to go? A
yeah.
shelter? A shelter? Let me tell
Yeah.
you, once you get into that shelter life, it is hard to get out of. It
Yeah.
is so hard. So we have to set these kids up.
Mm.
Financial success, education success with
Mhm.
complete wraparound services. That's how we make our system better.
Amazing. So obviously shattered system, like a lot of work to be done. Tell us more about how comfort cases is helping out.
Well, you know what? The fact is that, I truly do know that Comfort Cases is helping
Mhm.
because I've seen it firsthand when a
Yeah.
child has received one of our cases.
Mhm.
Every single case gets a brand new pair of pajamas with a tag
Mhm.
on it. I remember the very first night my daughter arrived in my home at the age of 4.
Mm.
She had not smiled the entire day until
Oh,
she tore the tag off that nightgown that night. And when she looked at me and she smiled, I said,
yeah.
Maya, why are you smiling? She says, Mr. Rob, I've never owned a new pair of pajamas before.
Wow.
See, that's not acceptable. I
Yeah.
want to make sure that every child has their own lotion, their own shampoo, their own
Mhm.
conditioner, and their own bar of soap.
Yeah.
You know, every one of your listeners and your viewers are going
Mhm.
to stay in a hotel. I guarantee you that none of them have ever been to a hotel and
Yeah.
the hotel has left the dirty bar of soap from the people before them.
Yeah.
Those are strangers.
Yeah.
That's why it's dignity. But
Mhm.
instead, we allow a child to go into a home of strangers and expect them to assimilate and not think about their mindset.
Yeah.
For us at Comfort Cases, that's important. We
Mm.
want to make sure that every child gets an activity. People do
Mhm.
not realize that when kids enter foster care, the majority of the children in the system go to holding centers and they can
Mhm.
wait all day. Some of them have actually sleep in offices. We want
Wow.
to make sure they have something to do. Kids
Yeah.
under the age of 10 get a coloring book and crayons, and kids over the age of 10 get a journal and a pen and pencil set.
Mhm.
There was an actual pediatric journal report that came out years ago, right
Mhm.
after we had started Comfort Cases. And it stated that kids who are in foster care or that are
Mhm.
adopted, if they journal, they will test higher than other children.
Wow.
No crap. I could have saved them millions of dollars on their research because I
Yeah.
know how important journaling is.
Yeah.
But Adam, I'll never forget. I was filming a CNN special years ago, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden, I was in the Midwest.
Mhm.
There was a young boy getting a case, and he was about 13 years old. And
Mhm.
he's unzipping the case, and he's pulling out his pajamas and his toiletries. He pulled out a book because we give every kid a book, because I
Wow.
truly do believe that if we get children to love to read and
Mhm.
educate their mind, we'll educate their future. He
Yeah.
pulled out his stuffy because I know that everybody loves a good stuffed animal, whether you're a newborn or 19. And then he pulled out his blanket. You know, my son Grayson was 6 years old when we packed our first blanket.
Yeah.
He was 2 when we started our nonprofit. And I
Mm.
remember at the age of 6, he looked at me and said, Daddy, we have to put a blankie in every single case. I said, a blankie? I said, you know, these kids are not cold, Grayson. He said, I know, Daddy. But every time they wrap themselves up in their blankie,
Yeah.
I know we love them. Wow.
Mm.
6. But as I was meeting this 13-year-old boy in the Midwest,
Mhm.
and he pulled out his journal, I saw a tear go down his eye,
Wow.
another and another. I turned the cameras off and I sat down on the floor and I said, why are you crying?
Yeah.
He said, Mr. Rob, I've been in foster care for 3 years.
Mm.
I've been in 13 homes.
Mm.
He says, every time I walk into a house, I have
Yeah.
all this music in my mind.
Mm.
And he says, the only thing I've ever wanted, and he pulled out his
Wow.
journal to write my music in. Adam, that journal was a 50-cent composition book. But
Mm.
to that boy, it was gold. To that
Yeah.
boy, it was his future. To that boy, it showed that his community knew he mattered. But
Yeah.
then to top it off, he said, why, Mr. Rob? I
Yeah.
said, why what? He said, why would someone do this? I said, do what?
Yeah.
He said, give me all of these new items. I looked at that boy as I tell you I tell your viewers and your
Mhm.
listeners, you do not have to know someone to love someone.
Yeah.
You don't. And so,
Mhm.
with that, we have given hope and dignity,
Mhm.
not once, not twice, but we have delivered over 150,000 cases to all 50 states,
Wow.
DC and Puerto Rico. And by the
Mm.
way, in March of 2020, when we all woke up and didn't know what the hell was going on within
Yeah.
our country and within our world, my husband and I and our team were opening up a center in the United Kingdom because
Mm.
we know there's 86,000 kids in foster care in the
Wow.
UK that carry the same thing our children carry, which is
Mm.
trash bags.
Yeah.
See, Adam, we're a 96% volunteer ran charity.
Mm.
People are shocked when they see our 990s. They
Yeah.
ask me all the time, how do you do it? And I do it like I told you before. If you teach your community of a problem and then
Mhm.
you show them how to solve it, they'll do it. And
Mm.
that's what we hope to do every single day at Comfort Cases.
What an amazing mission. What an amazing story. And over 150,000 cases. And now also in the UK. I mean, it's a lot of children you're helping, a lot of lives that you're affecting, and just the systemic, that good deed, that doing one good thing and giving that boy that notebook, like all these things that just adds up over time. And I'm excited about obviously what you're doing. But also I want to talk about this podcast. So when it first came on my radar and I first seen the content, first off, I was kind of blown away. I was looking at the content overall, and I'm like, you can, like, your passion for what you do, your mission, it comes through on video. Not always an easy thing to do, no matter how passionate you are about what you're doing, but also the types of guests you're having on, and the topic, and the way that you're approaching everything. At first, when I saw when I saw it all together as a package, I'm like, oh, it's something special. So maybe just to start on the podcast side of things, like, what inspired this? Like, why did you decide to go the platform route,
How
podcast platform route?
First of all, how crazy. I would have never, first of all, if anybody would have ever asked me 5 years ago, would I have a podcast? I would have laughed. 3 years ago, I would have laughed. Fostering Change has been voted the #1 podcast in
Yeah.
2021 for foster care and adoption. And it
Mm.
all started in an interview, just like
Wow.
you and I are doing right now. I was on a
Yeah.
radio station. I was being interviewed. I happened to click with the person who was doing the interview. And
Yeah.
afterwards, I laughed and said, we should do a podcast. And I was just, like I needed anything else on my plate, by the way.
Yeah.
But she pushed me and I did it.
Wow.
And at the first season, we did the podcast. It was only on all the platforms.
Hmm.
And I remember I hired a producer, and I
Yeah.
remember my producer saying to me, you've got to do a video podcast. You
Yeah.
have to do this on YouTube. And first of all, I will have to tell you, he says, you're so animated. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And
Yeah.
so we did. So, we're on all the YouTube
Yeah.
platform. I mean, we're on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. The guests are everyone and anybody you could
Mm.
possibly imagine. I
Yeah.
truly think that, it is my social
Hmm.
responsibility. It is my responsibility as a good human,
Yeah.
to make sure that we tell stories that are
Hmm.
helping to educate us on a daily basis. And
Hmm.
that could be lots of things. And by the way, I've had a gambit of people who are on
Yeah.
my show. Everybody from Leanne Toohey from The Blind Side
Hmm.
to Ben Higgins from The Bachelor, who
Yeah.
actually was on my podcast, to the CEO of Soapbox, and
Hmm.
then to the CASA worker and the social worker and the
Yeah.
foster parent. So like I said, I look forward to it every single week.
Yeah.
It airs on Tuesdays. I'm in my 3rd season, and I am so looking forward to many more seasons. And as long as we keep getting listeners and viewers,
Yeah.
there's still so many more people to interview, such as you, Adam. You should be a guest on my podcast.
Anytime. I'm here. I'm always willing and able to support on things like that. And I want to go further because going back to kind of the same thing I was talking about when we first started this interview, when we're talking about the idea of you went out and did it. Like, people want to do things. And part of what our goal here at Mission Matters today is to spark inspiration for people to go out and do it. So I know people are watching this, and I may be biased because I'm a podcaster. So whenever I can get another podcaster out there to carry the flag of how cool podcasting is, but not just the fun part, but the difference you can actually make. Like, tell me a little bit more about some of just the feedback you've received and
Oh
just
my
some of
gosh.
because I know you get it, because I get it all the
Oh,
time.
of course I get it. And by the way, let's I'm really a realist person. So I'm the type of person who rips the Band-Aid off really quick because I want people to know that I don't always get the best comments either. Okay. Because I am a person who will say what I have to say how I feel it. And it's what I remind people all the time. Kids who are in foster care, they don't care whether you're blue or red. What they care about is that you help them. And that's the exact same way I feel when it comes to my viewers and my listeners. And so I tell people all the time, I have people who reach out to me and they'll say, I really want to do a podcast because I'm really, really passionate about sewing. I mean, I had a woman just reach out to me recently about sewing.
That's awesome.
I said, do it. I said, do it. I said, it takes, for me, it took a microphone, ear sets when I had my first pod, when I did my first one, earbuds, and I used the mic that was on my little earbud thing. And I say do it. I get some amazing questions. But the thing that I have to tell you, my husband actually said this to me just the other day, and it was eye-opening for me. My husband and I were sitting and we were watching something on TV, and they were all of a sudden, just out of the blue, foster care came up and on commercial or something. And the commercial passed. My husband Reese said, you notice something? And I said, notice what? He says, we talk a lot more about foster care on the media and in shows. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, I think you had a part to do with that. And I said, what? And he says, I really think you had a part to do with that by opening up 10 years ago, and how you continue to do that. And so that's what I'm trying to say, is that I say this to people all the time who reach out to me. Listen, have a part to do with the conversation. It's that, my friend, I have a friend of mine, she started a nonprofit called Foster More that I absolutely love. And she did this whole big platform on the water cooler talk. And it's about when you're at your work and you're standing around the water cooler and, talking about, foster care for us, because we're passionate about foster care. So what I'm saying is to your listeners and to your viewers, and even those who reach out to me at Fostering Change, is I say, have that conversation that you have around the water cooler. Adam, you got to, maybe you won't admit this, but I can't imagine you wouldn't. That is what podcasting is all about.
Yeah.
It's about having conversations. I can tune in, and here's a good example. I can tune in to my local TV station every morning. I watch the same news station. My team knows who I watch because I'm on their show quite often. But every 30 minutes, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And when it comes to podcasts, I get in my car and I'm listening to a variety of things, every 25, 30, 40 minutes, I'm in a new show and I'm listening to a new topic and I'm energized about something new. I think that's what it's all about. It's the conversation.
Yeah. Totally. And one of the things that you mentioned that just also stuck out to me is, I tell people this all the time. Sure. There's different types of podcasts, different levels of production, all kinds of stuff. But to me, the barrier of entry is so low. Our first podcast we started, I tell people all the time, I didn't even want to start a podcast. The other co-founder here is like, you have to start a podcast. Why? Because we need to sell more books. We need to do other things. It just fit into what we were doing. I didn't even want to do it. So I wasn't really thinking about it. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I signed up on a free platform. I had my iPhone and I had a pair of headphones, and I set up our first podcast. It took me probably 45 minutes. I just set one up, whatever, no production, nothing, whatever. I did before I knew it. I mean, I don't know how many months it took, but I'd recorded 300 episodes and built an audience based off of my headphones and an iPhone, and zero cost. So when I tell people like there's other ways to do it, you don't have to always hire a professional agency, or you don't have to look at other people's content or others like. And that's not that long ago, by the way. That's only a couple years ago. What, 4 years ago? So
Yeah.
like you can build an audience, you can get your message out. If you're authentic, if you just tell your story, have that water cooler talk, as you mentioned, Rob, if you just do that, there's somebody out there you're going to help. Like part of the reason we reinvested and we continued to up the quality and the production and, you know, the resources behind it is because of the feedback we were getting. Like you'll be so surprised. You're like, wow, people are listening to this. Like it's download, like you're helping people. And once you kind of get that solidified in your mind, then you're like, okay, this is something important. Like everybody has something to give back to the world. They have an audience out there, like you said, sewing. I mean, some of the podcasts we launched here, like you'd be surprised, like some of them are very niche, and I'm just like, wow, that was a good idea. And
Yeah.
nobody in the world can do that podcast except for that person. Why? Because they're putting their heart into it. It's their content, it's their words, it's their mission, and it's really their niche. So I just love the platform. And that's why I said I'll talk about it all day. So when I had you on here, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get Rob to talk about it.
Because you're like me. I mean, the fact is that I love a good conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and people want to hear a good conversation.
Yeah.
And I think we have only scratched the
Mm-hmm.
surface when it comes to podcasting. I really do believe that. You know, I hear people. I've heard some people send me a message and they'll say, "Ah, there's a podcast every time we turn the corner." That's exactly right. That's exactly right. But I grew up as a kid who remembers where there was only 4 TV stations.
Yeah.
Okay. You only had 4 choices of what you watched.
Yeah.
Gosh, how amazing it is when I jump on one of our platforms and I see just the thousands of different opportunities that I could learn something different. You know, it's all about taking our horizons and expanding them.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that is sewing, whether that's learning how to, you know, let me tell you, I have 5 kids, as I say this quite
Yeah.
often. I have 4 boys and 1 girl. Okay. My heart can only take 1 daughter. That's why I only have 1 daughter. But I have four boys. And I have boys who are interested in all different kinds of stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
have, you know, I'm a big football fan. So I have some of my kids who are in football. I have a son who is so into anime. It's unbelievable. But guess what? I'm able to go to a podcast and I'm able to listen to about it. And I'm able to have a conversation with them because something that I was taught on a podcast 30 minutes while I was in my car driving to an appointment. So let me tell you something. Podcast has just scratched the surface. We got a long way to go.
Yeah, exciting times. So Rob, I'll just say, you know, it's been great having you on the show today, learning more about your story, all the great work you're doing at Comfort Cases, and of course the Fostering Change podcast. I mean, lots going on. So I just have to say, so what's next? What's next for you? What's next for the platform? What's next for the company?
Wow, what's next? First of all, Reese and I definitely want to keep expanding Comfort Cases. We're hoping that next year we will be in, well, we hope that this year in 2022 that we will actually be in Canada is where our next footprint will go. Our book, A Forever Family, Fostering Change One Child at a Time. If you have not bought this copy, you can, all your local bookstores. It's actually in the process of being written as a screenplay. So it's kind of exciting. So my husband and I are so excited about that, and just continue to follow us on whether it's our social media platforms, and see all the things that are getting ready to happen for Comfort Cases, and for the Scheers. You know, I mean, when I wrote our book, my husband and I had 4 kids, and you know, 2 years ago, our 5th child, Alex, entered our life. And so now, you know, we have, you know, 13, 14, 15, 17, and 20. And I don't think that we're done. But yeah, just, you know, I'm excited about the screenplay. I'm excited about the expansion. But what I'm more excited about, Adam, is what you did today, which is what I need everybody to do. And that is to talk about foster care. Because the only way things get changed changed is by doing what you and I are doing first.
Mhm.
First, you start the talk, and then we can start the action. I know
Yeah.
that. I've seen it happen. So, Adam, I can't thank you enough for all that Mission Matters does
Yeah.
for our organization. And most people don't know this, but you are a huge supporter, and your company is a huge supporter of our charity. And
Yeah.
you didn't bring it up, you didn't say that,
Yeah.
and I just want people to know that Mission matters because they're making sure that we matter at Comfort Cases. So thank you for that, my friend.
Awesome, and thank you. And we'll put this all in the show notes, but I always like to get it out of the guest's mouth. What's the best way that people can follow and can follow up?
Yeah, well, number one, go to comfortcases.org,
Mhm.
and they can learn all about our organization and all the different platforms that we're sitting on. They can find me on Instagram. The best way to find me is Rob_Scheer.
Yeah.
And, just continue to keep being good humans, because that's what it's all about, is
Mhm.
that each and every one of us have an opportunity. I'm going to say this real quick, Adam.
Yeah.
I told you in the very beginning when I was telling you this story, I talked about,
Mhm.
my house and my car and my money.
Yeah.
And what I've realized is what's important, and each one of us should understand this, is number one, our family. And
Yeah.
blood doesn't make you family. Number
Mhm.
two, your community. Every person that you stand next to is
Yeah.
important. And then for me, it's my dash. And
Mhm.
most of your listeners and viewers have heard the poem. We're all going to get it, whether we're old, whether we're young, whether we're white, whether we're black.
Mhm.
Every one of us are going to get the same thing. Walk through your graveyards, you'll see it. The year you're born, your dash, and the year you die. I want
Yeah.
my dash to count. I want my dash to shine so bright that my children walk by it and say,
Mhm.
my dad, he just didn't talk about it. He
Yeah.
did it. And
Mm.
we all can do it.
Well said. And we'll leave it there. So we'll put all of the notes, and all the contact information, all that good stuff in the show notes, so that so that all the audience can go over and check it out. And to the audience, if this is your first time watching or tuning in to Mission Matters, just to let you know, we're a platform all about amplifying and bringing on guests that really have a mission to share, that have something that wakes them up and fires them up every morning and gets them out there wanting to add value into the world, the marketplace, and just in general. So if you're into content like that, if that's the kind of stuff that excites you, then definitely hit that subscribe button, because we have many more mission-based entrepreneurs, executive, and experts coming on the line. And Rob, really, it has been a pleasure. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, my friend.